Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again. So I think we had very interesting conversations today up till now, and I think some of the conversations were very interesting in terms of why and how much amount of technology should be used into taxation. And many times I was doing some kind of a course for tax professionals in Ahmedabad, all the chartered accountants, and I told them that it is very easy to teach technology to a chartered accountant, but it is very difficult to teach accountancy, yeah, taxation to a IT professional. So I would always rate that the chartered accountants are learning far faster, yeah, the tax professionals are learning far faster than any of the IT profession in terms of taxation. But both are completely interlinked. And coming back to our challenges is, and I'll just kind of start with first question, and if you can kind of just a small introduction and kind of a brief answer onto that particular question. Which are the three major challenges in terms of GST implementation or indirect implementation, or maybe one, two, three that you will consider today most critical for you? So you can either start from this side or that side, whatever is comfortable. So
So, so basically, GST implementation, if you say it's the data available to the government by way of e-invoice, by way of e-way bills. So it's a huge data available to the tax authorities and the and the relevant notices being issued basis those data. So this is the biggest challenge what industry is facing. And so it's also the notices from the income tax authorities basis the data available in the GST portals. So this altogether is a next challenge to the industry. And secondly, though GST is not very old, but yeah, one tax, one country, one tax. So this is not being followed very rigorously from the government side. What we practically face at the ground level. So these are two challenges which I feel is something which is creating problems for the industry.
Dinesh.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So as always, I'll start with a disclaimer that views are my personal views and my organization may have a different view on the topic. So, to my understanding, first is, this reminds me of on the D-Day of the GST implementation. And we also talked in previous session that, GST is not only a tax, it is a change the way we are doing business. So first we need to understand and make our people understand that now after implementation of GST, we need to change our way of doing the business. Whether it is, getting invoices, raising purchase orders, or recording of purchases in purchase register, or whether you are doing it through a GRIR, blah, blah, blah. So first is, capturing the right data at the right time. Second, dealing with the right supplier or customer. Because now the onus is on you, and the government is not going to spare you for any, availment of the credit. Third, there are a lot of compliances government is putting, every day. So my biggest worry is what new is coming in GST. And, it is very difficult to implement any change. And the government is not giving you any breather to implement new things. So maybe, during the discussion, we will discuss some of the things which are already, in the public domain, and government has already issued the notification with the due dates. And how we are going to cope up with that, it's very, very tough.
Sure. Yeah, Nikhil.
Hi, hi. Good afternoon, all. So, just to add on all these points, the first challenge that I see is when we started with GST in 2017, GST is evolving. Every time every time you read the newspaper or every month you will find there are a lot of changes that GST government is making. So one challenge that comes is bringing that change and talking to our tech team for implementation of that. That takes a lot of time and effort, I would say. Second, I would say, yes, the data challenge, because the data is very huge. And if the changes come, so then it becomes a real challenge. Yeah, that is the 2 points.
Yeah. So I think after so many years also the data is the biggest challenge. Notices is the second biggest challenge, and too much amount of frequent changes from the GSTN side. And let me be very honest with you, many more are coming in. So this is just tip of the iceberg. Many more are coming in. Yeah, Mr. Qureshi.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Just to add actually to that data point itself, I think the issue that we are now facing increasingly as businesses is the huge data analytics skills and capabilities which now the government has developed, and the data sharing which happens between different parts of the government, especially between the GST authorities and the income tax authorities. And look, I'm not suggesting in any way that we are trying to hide anything from the government, but sometimes the data analytics tools come up with some analysis that even we would not have thought through. And honestly, some of that is not even relevant to what they are trying to really derive. And we sometimes get show cause notices, and when we go and discuss those notices, we are told that actually we don't know, this has come to us from the back-end tools, and we will have to work together to basically close this. So I think that is something which is happening. I think the industry needs to appreciate, industry needs to understand that, and it may be difficult to appreciate, but I think we'll also have to make a lot of investment in data analytics tools and in resources so that we can really keep up with this whole requirement. The other thing I just want to say, and this I am saying from the perspective of the service industry, especially export of services, which is what we are in. I think before GST, there was a centralized registration we used to have. We would file one return, one assessment, one refund. With GST coming in, there was a lot of sort of advocacy with the government that they should keep this as centralized, especially for export industry, where there are no tax implications as such. But unfortunately, that did not happen. We are now actually saddled with multiple registrations, center as well as state, in each state where we operated. We have to file multiple returns. We have to chase multiple authorities for our refunds. So I think that is a big challenge that we are facing, and I don't think that's going to go away, because I think the states are very clear. They do not want to give up this authority. I think that is a big challenge that we'll really have to work through.
I think the distribution of central cost, how you do it, that is also going to come in as a major play for a centralized organizations like us. So that's also kind of going to come in. Yeah, Deepanshu.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. So I would say GST is, there is a challenge from the taxpayer itself, but, there is other side of that. That is the tax department. This is new to them also, and they don't, even follow the basic principle of applying a common sense while issuing notices. Reason, as, rightly said, this is coming from some data analytical tools, and just they are throwing up the notices on the taxpayer, which is adding which is adding a compliance burden on the taxpayer, which require a lot of efforts for not even a quantum of a clarification or a quantum of point which they have raised. So I would be saying that it's more required to educate the other side also, because just on the taxpayer itself putting all the burdens, making them doing all the compliances, replying on the inadequate questions, I think that creates a lot of problem for the taxpayer and requires a lot of efforts and time and cost. So I would be saying it's an evolving state. GST is still in the I would be saying not evolved drastically. So it would require a lot of things from the department side to have a robust team at ground level who can instead of throwing XYZ notice, they should look for the validity of the information which the tools are throwing. That's one thing. Second, I would be saying So as you know, sir said that there are multiple registrations required to operate in a different state. When we talk about one state, one tax, it should be ideally a central registration, because that would reduce lot of compliance for the taxpayer. And what I have seen practically is that, one authority is taking another, taking a, position, and, the other jurisdiction is denying that. So that creates a lot of ambiguity around the tax positions a taxpayer should adopt, which creates lot of litigation and the tax cost and the time also. So I think still in the evolving stage and would require a lot of time and efforts from both the sides. That's all from my side.
I think from the people from the manufacturing side, and we have few on the services side as well. And on the manufacturing side, the entire issue is becoming very, very complex, and kind of vendor payments in a timely manner, and then the onus of us to kind of claiming the right kind of input tax credit. So how difficult or how easy it is becoming, and at the same time kind of responding to notices from 17-18 till now. So I think it's becoming a cluster. And on a very lighter note, I will say the people who are kind of analyzing the data on the other side are IT professionals, and maybe the tax professionals on the government side are not stopping them from kind of issuing any kind of a notice, yeah, kind of testing it out and then sending it across. देख लेते हैं क्या होता है, जवाब तो कुछ आएगा ना, then we will analyze. That's the type of challenge we face on a daily basis. So yeah, I mean, like, what do you feel is kind of, how do you really kind of tackle? Is it a kind of only thing is understanding from the government side is going to help, or maybe a more automation may help to a little bit?
Hi, so let me answer this.
Yeah, Nikhil.
So I think one of the root cause that we found out for this was, I would say, vendor or procurement optimization. So like we are I come from Moglix, so we are aggregators of around 25,000 vendors. So what we found out is for the industry wide is that when we analyze the data, so we say like for your 3 to 5% of your procurement spent, like there are around, we are 60 to 70% of your vendor base. So if you see your tail spend, it is 5% and the vendor base is 70%. So if you apply 80-20 rule, so that helps you out. One is that. So like if I talk about Moglix, so Moglix comes into a picture. Like we play a very pivotal role in transforming your organization from end to end, from I would say supply chain or for the procurement side. On the different tools, like one of the side, the Niraj is like what all tools that we have started using. Like rightly said, the data is a big challenge. So we have started using GST. Also, like we were discussing in the morning, like we have started using artificial intelligence to analyze or support our data. So that like we started using a tool known as AM tool. So it is artificial intelligence management data. So what we do is we upload our purchase register on a real-time basis. It map with GSTR 2A. So that helps us. So that is some of the tool, or we are moving in a direction of technology that will only save us in this arena.
Yeah, Deepanshu, Amardeep, you want to add something?
So I would be saying that, as rightly said, data is one of the most important thing for GST. And, when we talk about more around that, we should look for the accuracy of it. We should look for the, proper documentation around that. And, as we were speaking earlier that, any kind of, automated tool which would help us to, verify the data, what we are getting, because getting data is one thing, getting right data is another thing. So it's very important to have a right data around, what you are collating, what you are, storing for the future litigation. Because when I say litigation, it always have a, always the data is the primary role to play or defend the litigation. If you have the right data in your hands with the right volume, then I would be saying you have won the half battle. So I think that's on that side. So we should look for that.
Yeah, Dinesh.
So just to add here, on top of that, I think there is a lack of positive mindset at government's level. Like Niraj mentioned on the lighter note that, the authorities are not stopping them. I can share a number of examples. I can share the example of Tran 2 audit. We all know that Tran 2 audit should be conducted by central authority. But unfortunately, the Tran 2 audit notice was issued by the state authority. We were giving details for last 2 months and they were not able to understand and appreciate whatever we were giving. And God was kind, at the same time, we got a notice from the central authority for the same period. We provide the same data. We got the order issued with no demand and acceptance of the Tran 2 credit. And we just simply submitted that to state authorities and got it closed. So this is a testimony of, my statement that they need to understand and there is a issue of competence to my understanding, right? They are not able, you take the example of e-way bill reconciliation, right? You all must be receiving notices that, there is a e-way bill reconciliation issue because in GSTR1 you have shown a outward liability of 200 crores, whereas e-way bill is showing 300 crores, right? Like Umang has already mentioned that, what is the right intent of the lawmakers. So e-way bill, when I am already selected, the purpose is the challan. Why you are asking me to provide you the detail that whether it is a outward supply or not? It is simply a harassment, right? Just because you people are not competent. You are not able to communicate to your IT people. You need to make them understand because IT, whatever you will say that they will definitely, build that. There is no issue at IT level. But you need to first have the correct intent that you need not to harass the business. So I think that is the main issue.
So I had kind of shared in the initial presentation that there was a very interesting cases regarding e-way bill and kind of FASTag information that you generated a e-way bill, you generated a stock transfer invoice, but the goods have not reached that particular plant or that particular warehouse, and a 830 crore notice was issued. And the company was literally struggling because maybe there was a different route which was not passing through the FASTag immediately and the goods were flowing through that. Now, but this data is also available to us. So there is a new department which is like NICDC. From that, we also can get all this information that is visible to the government. And integrating that with our systems can actually allow us to kind of understand what type of notices are going to come from the government or what data points are going to come in. So sometimes the interpretations may differ, that what we understand out of it and what they kind of make of it may differ, but it is that. So to Mr. Qureshi, like...
Just to add one thing.
Yeah.
So when you are saying, we have the data available and authorities are, managing it in that manner. So it is nothing but a micromanagement, right? And to my understanding, every relationship will come to an end if you start micromanaging. Whether it is between husband and wife, with your kids, with your colleagues, do not micromanage everything. You need to give some breather to breathe. Why you are doing that?
No,
if the tax had already been paid, whatever route we choose, why you are questioning that?
I think to be honest and to be kind of saying the other side, I'll just add. There is enough.
I would like to add a minute for the
Yes.
e-way bills. So, practically saying, in fact, in the e-way bills, if the material is moving and the e-way bills expire due to some breakdown or some other reasons, or the first transporter has not updated the e-way bill and the second transporter is moving out with the goods, and the goods are being caught, it's a practical difficulty to the companies and the authorities who are catching the vehicles. They are asking to pay taxes in the jurisdiction the vehicle is being caught with a temporary registration. So this altogether, one nation, one tax, everything is ruling out. You need to go to that jurisdiction, file an appeal, everything. It's adding.
And litigations are adding for everybody.
Everyone, yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
And
yeah.
even for the government, it's a major botheration. Yeah, so coming to Mr. Qureshi, what would you consider the best ITC practice? Because being an export-oriented organization, you are always claiming refund, and taking refunds from the government is always something of a challenge. So how do you really manage, and what are the best practices around it?
So before I come to that, Niraj, I'll just say something on a lighter note. So I think you just mentioned about IT professionals issuing notices. I would actually modify that slightly and say that no, it's not even IT professionals. It's not even human beings. It is some robos
Yeah.
who are issuing notices. And they're just comparing some two numbers, and they might be absolutely apples and oranges, and they just shoot out a notice. And
Yes.
sometimes those notices are so scary, they run into crores of rupees.
Yes.
And nobody is really willing to, you go to the officer, he's equally surprised, and he will say, ठीक है, we'll do something, we'll have to understand ये कहाँ से आ रहा है, मुझे नहीं पता.
But the prompts are being used by the prompts given to the technology are again given by humans. Somewhere humans are involved in giving those prompts.
Right.
On top of that, he will say, "आप detail को submit करो."
Yeah, in fact, we were just talking before this session, and that's a live example which many people in this room will share. I mean, 30th September was the date for actually issuing notices. They have actually issued notices wherever they could not understand anything, irrespective of the amounts involved. And for us, it becomes so difficult to explain these things internally within the company. If you're talking of crores of rupees, you really have to explain that, oh, did we do something wrong? Why? And going and telling your senior management that, look, no, it is some robo who has issued some notice. They won't buy that. They will think it's some mismanagement which has really happened. Sorry, coming to your question. So I think
Yes.
on the refund side, I would say there have been a lot of challenges we have really faced, both related to what is eligible input tax versus on the process itself. So, for example, I'll just spend 1 minute on this point. We have been claiming refunds as exporters of services for the last 15 years before GST came in. All our services, all our agreements were repeatedly evaluated, and we were regarded as exporter of services. GST comes in, the law remains exactly the same. Suddenly this term of intermediary gets thrown at us by certain states. Now it is exactly the same term which was there in service tax. You have looked at everything. You have given us refunds earlier. Now you are saying that you are intermediary. You are not exporting. The fact that your customer is outside India, you are earning dollars, precious dollars for the country, that is not good enough. No, you are not an exporter. If you look at the definition of intermediary, it really gets very funny. It's really a commission agent or a broker or whatever name called. I mean, a BPO company, can it even be a commission agent or a broker? So we had to actually go through a very painful process of explaining this to the board, getting a circular issued from the board. There were certain states who refused to accept even those circulars. And then we had to go to the High Court. Thankfully, both Punjab, Haryana and Delhi, now they have ruled in favor of the BPO industry. So hopefully, and I think the government agreed that this is not an appealable case to the Supreme Court. So this matter should now get closed. But yes, it results in huge blockage of funds for the industry. And all of this happening in the middle of COVID, it was really a big challenge.
And another government department where you are filing the softwares, taking the BRCs from RBI, all of that is approving that as an export, and still that's a challenge over here. So it's like lack of coordination between multiple departments is also a issue.
And since you raised the point of the BRC, so I think that has now really become another challenge. I mean, I have exported services. I can show you all proof, but no, they want particular documentation. They want agreements at a location level. Who signs agreements at a location level? I may have 10 different delivery centers in India, but I'll have one agreement.
Yes.
No, they have to be at a location level. The FIRC or the EBRC has to mention the address of that location. Then they start asking, this is not just BPO industry, I think this is common everywhere. They started asking for location-wise profit and loss accounts. So I think somewhere we're just trying to make things more difficult and more procedural rather than really looking at the intent and really, I mean, really if somebody has exported something, You need to recognize that.
Yes.
I don't think that is really happening.
I think you touched an interesting question, and that's not something I'm going little bit out of syllabus. But state-wise profit and loss has become a compulsion now. Any comments, any thoughts onto it? Because there is no way out. You will have to do it. You want to say?
So I would be saying it's a very true fact that, the authorities are looking for state-wise profit and loss account. And what I have seen practically is that it is very difficult to demonstrate that a particular kind of receipt or a particular kind of expense has been, recognized under the other GST authority or other GST registration. So how you would demonstrate a thing if it is, particularly, let's suppose I'll talk about a central expense or expense incurred at a central level or a corporate level. Now you have claimed the input under, let's suppose, a Bangalore registration and a GST audit is ongoing. Then the person is asking that why you are, claiming it under Bangalore. There is no law around it, right? If I have taken that services in Bangalore, I can claim it under the Bangalore. To prove that I have, utilized it Bangalore is very difficult. So, you can prepare a P&L at state level for certain line of items, but there are certain common expenditure which, corporates are incurring, which is practically not feasible to bifurcate. And, arriving a profit or arriving a GST calculation around that is very difficult. Okay. So they need to understand the macros of the business, not going into that detail or the minute level. Ultimately, it is going in the pocket of government, whether it's UP or whether it's Bangalore, it's going with the government and we are paying taxes on that. So they should give the leverage around that.
Dinesh, any thoughts around this?
So I just want to add on this export of services. So very interestingly, I just come across an issue. So what GST law says that whenever there is a transaction between two related parties, it will be deemed to be supply even if there is no consideration, right? My question is, if we have a transaction between two related parties, one is in India and one is outside India, right? It will still be qualified to be a supply without consideration. But the moment I say I am fulfilling all the conditions of export of services except the payment, because you yourself is saying even if you have not received the payment, it will qualify to be a service, a supply. So if I am not receiving the foreign currency for that particular transaction, which I have actually entered into just because of the compulsion of GST law, will it be considered as an export of services or not? Why? Right? Because I do not want, there is no consideration as such, because we are a related party. The classic example is a corporate guarantee. I am giving a corporate guarantee. I do not want any money from my subsidiary outside India. You are saying it is a supply. I am reporting it as a export of services in my GST-R1 and complying with all the requirement except the consideration. Because you yourself is saying without consideration it will still be a supply. If you are saying no consideration, no supply, then I would have not raised the invoice.
Yes.
Right? So my point again is, still there is a lack of competence. Second, the intent is not clear. We need to see how we can let the business survive. They are not understanding that if the business will survive, the tax will automatically come. Right? And there are a number of examples on this 5 crore rupees e-invoice limit. Government is saying you need to check whether your supplier is falling under the limit of 5 crore or not. My point is, why should I be checking? You should be checking. You have all the, you are saying you go and check on the portal. I am saying you check, you have all the information. Why don't you put a validation on the site itself? If he is above 5 crore falling under the bracket and he is not using, not raising the e-invoice, he should not be allowed to file GST-R1. Right? You are putting a, validation and not allowing to file the GST-R1 or IFF. If under Rule 88C(d), right? Then why not for e-invoicing also? But the government is putting every onus on the SSC, and which is kind of, giving suffocation, and you are not able to survive. Tax should not be seen as a, negative to your business.
Yes.
It should be part of your business, and we should be partnering with government for building the nation.
Yeah, but for service providers like us, all these complications are an opportunity, but it is really making the
If
industry
you look at that,
struggle.
it is for us also, because as a tax professional, it is the survival.
Yes, it is equally for you.
Otherwise, if it gets settled at par with the the income tax TDS,
Then-
there is no litigation on
Then all
TDS.
of us would not be sitting over here and having a conversation. So, Amardeep, one more question is TDS and going to TDS. And TDS, first I'll take up 26 AS to kind of GST and reconciliation. It's a challenge. And is it now really coming into conversations that how to go about it or how to do it, or it's still two different teams are taking care of it?
So TDS is no more a challenge, practically saying, but with the introduction of this 194Q, basically the TDS on purchase, if you download a 26 AS for a manufacturing company, it runs into more than 400 or 500 pages.
Yes.
In fact, last year I was filing the income tax return for my company. It was comprising of 500 pages, 400 pages for TDS.
TDS.
So yes, data is huge. Till date, there is no reconciliation how this TDS is reflecting to your sales. Might be in days to come. You show the TDS you are claiming with your revenue, which has been an issue in the past. Then of course it can create challenges. But yeah, managing this data is difficult at present to the to big companies who have a big customer in the supply chain, basically.
Yeah.
And otherwise, rest of the TDS is not much big of a challenge. The biggest challenge into TDS is when we go to 26 AS, we have the legal name, and the books of accounts are with the trade name. So, and we don't have a PAN in 26 AS. So matching this legal name to trade name and everything, there are solutions available in the industry. People are using it. So
yeah. So I think anybody wants to add on the TDS side of it?
So TDS, TCS, is a bigger problem now
Yes.
these days, just because of the compliance. They are not saying that, you need to comply with this requirement. So in our company, I am happy to comply on my sales part also. But due to the provision of the law, if the other party is under obligation to do the compliance, and the other party is doing it on quarterly basis, they are not doing it on invoice basis, right? Then the reconciliation is becoming a big issue. So this reminds me of, again, the D-Day statement that we are going to have the reconciliation manager and even at the reconciliation vice president also in the company's days to come. And we are moving towards that everything need to be reconciled.
Yes.
Everything need to be reconciled, right? So it is very, very difficult, and the quantum is very, very less, right? Sometimes even if you are saying that, okay, I'm ready to forego this amount, but this is not the solution, right? So the solution is, should we start dealing with only the big corporates? That is not possible, right? So how you can educate other people? Like, in one of the DGJ investigation, I was telling the authority that why don't you implement RCM for everything? Right? At least I need not to reconcile my ITC and need not to ensure that my supplier has actually paid the tax or not. I will pay the tax. I will avail the credit. That's it.
But I think things are moving little bit into that aspect. And I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. It's a kind of thing. But government has came up with a new change where for the e-commerce platform, the non-registered dealers will, without being registered as a GST and taxpayer, they will kind of be able to facilitate the sale through that. Now, whether that will be constituted in future as a B2B sales or not, or who's will take the responsibility in terms of the tax deduction onto it, it's a kind of something which will only unfold, because this is a very, very recent change that has come in and the APIs are coming out for it. But this is something is little bit, and many organizations like you have really pushed across to the government to allow us to do more RCM, and that really will ease out things. for us.
And Niraj ji, on top of that, being a listed company, अब बैठे बैठे सेबी को लगा कि यार हमसे कोई डर नहीं रहा, लोग सब जीएसटी की बात कर रहे हैं, हमारी नहीं कर रहे. So they have very recently issued a circular stating that every penalty need to be reported to SEBI. Whether this, e-way bill penalty, whether it is a penalty, because it is not yet adjudicated. First, आपने बाहर एक कूड़ादान रखा हुआ, उसके लिए आपको 2,000 रुपए की पेनल्टी लगा दी एमसीडी ने. Do we really need to report? And they are saying you need to report within 24 hours. So sir, survival is at a stake, I am saying.
Yeah, I think let's open the session for the audience. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, we'll be more than happy to kind of take it up. So maybe some audience questions. Anybody? I think then we will not wait between lunch and people. I think people are hungry. So let's break for lunch. And thank you so much. Thanks a lot for all your time and really appreciate it. Thank you.